All right, this video is for just how do we change the amplitude and period for sine, cosine, and tangent graphs. So before we get into this slide, let's just go back and take a look at these three graphs. So sine, again, kind of the key thing you might need to remember here is that it starts at 0, the period is 2 pi, and amplitude is 1. Cosine starts at 1, period is also 2 pi, and the amplitude is also 1. Tangent, amplitude is undefined, the period is pi, and there are asymptotes at odd multiples of pi over 2. Okay, so how do we change the amplitude? When we're looking at sine or cosine, the a value in front of the sine or cosine, that is going to be the amplitude. Just take the absolute value of that value and you will get your amplitude. The period will be 2 pi, which is a usual period, divided by whatever's in front of theta, which should be your b. For tangent, your amplitude, remember, is undefined, but the period for tangent is pi, so you're going to figure out your period, you're going to go pi divided by b here instead and get that. Okay. All right, let's take a look at a couple of examples where we've changed the amplitude and potentially the period on these two graphs. So the first one we're going to look at is y equals 3 times cosine of 2 theta. Here our amplitude, our a value, oops, let's use this ugly orange color. That's absolute value of 3 is 3, so our amplitude is 3. Our period is 2 pi divided by b. Our b is that number that's in front of theta, so in this case that's 2. 2 pi divided by 2 gives us pi. Once again, my writing kind of sucks on this iPad. All right, so now this is the cosine graph, and if you'll recall, cosine starts at 1 and then has a period of 2 pi. So what that means is it should be back to 1 after a cycle of 2 pi. In between there, it's at -1, so halfway in between would be pi. So that's kind of the cycle that you should usually see, but this time we've had a couple of different things happen here. Our amplitude is now 3, so really instead of having those 3 dots, we're going to start at, instead of 1, we're going to start at 3. And now instead of going all the way over to 2 pi, we have a period of pi. So I need to get back to 3 here. So at pi. So halfway in between that, I'm supposed to be at -1. Well, now that's multiplied by 3, so this should be at -3. Okay. And then in between each of those dots, the graph hits 0. So I'm going to fill those in. And now that's one period. So really you can just repeat that in either direction and you have your graph. So let me just see if I can make these dots in the appropriate spots. It's a little tricky. Remember to try to go all the way out on your graph each direction. You've got to fill out the complete graph here. As you're doing this on your iPads, hopefully you will not have as many difficulties as I seem to have. All right, so, yep, see, there we go, terrible line. All right. Okay, not too bad for me on the iPad. All right, so that would be y equals 3 times cosine of 2 theta. All right, let's take a look at our second graph here. And this one is y equals 2 times tangent of 1/2 theta. Okay, I'm going to switch colors here. Let's go pink. All right, so our amplitude for tangent is undefined. That's going to be multiplied by 2, but that's still going to give us undefined. Okay, and then the period for tangent is pi. We're going to divide that by b, which will be divided by b here is a half. So pi divided by 1/2 would be 2 pi. Okay, so remember when we're doing this then, if you'll recall, I guess, tangent starts at 0, usually has an asymptote line right here, usually goes to 1, and then -1 over here, and then we have another asymptote line, kind of like that, right? And when we're looking at that, that is, the graph is, half of it is to the left of the y-axis and half of it is to the right. So the same thing has to occur when we do this graph here. Our period is 2 pi, but that's going to be split up by the y-axis. Okay, so, all right. So I'm still going to start at 0. Now I know my period is 2 pi. So this is going to mean, I guess I'll change colors and put in the asymptote. This is going to be split, and I'm going to have pi is going to be my first asymptote, and then negative pi, whoops. Okay, oh, good enough. All right, so there are my asymptotes. Now you want to make sure, does that distance between there actually end up, is this distance here 2 pi? Yeah, okay, and it's in between, again, halfway in between on either side. Okay, so now I just need to go, I know in between the start here is 0, and my first asymptote, I should be at 1, usually. Well, now that's multiplied by 2, so I'm going to be up here. Okay, and then same thing going to the left of the y-axis at negative pi over 2, I should be at -2. Okay, now I can continue that, and looking over here, I know I'm going to have be back at 0 at 2 pi, and then another dot here. I won't be able to fit to the right of that. Same thing back here, I'll be at -2 pi, I'll be at 0, and then at -3 pi over 2, I'll be at +2. That's all I'll be able to fit. All right, let's connect these. Sort of made it. Okay. And that's y equals 2 times tangent of 1/2 theta. All right, see you later.